The text arrived at 6:47 a.m., 2 days before Christmas, while the sky outside my apartment window was still the pale grey of unfinished thoughts. I remember the exact moment because my phone buzzed against the wooden nightstand, sharp and insistent, pulling me out of a dream where everything was still normal, where Christmas meant cinnamon rolls, tangled lights, and my mother humming off-key in the kitchen. The message was short, brutally short. "We think it's better if Laura doesn't come this year." No greeting, no explanation, no punctuation soft enough to suggest doubt. Just that. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering uselessly above it, my chest tightening as if something inside me had quietly snapped. For a few seconds I convinced myself I had misread it, that maybe autocorrect had done something strange, that maybe this was about someone else named Laura, that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't what it felt like. But it was, and it hurt in a way that didn't scream, it sank. Laura was my wife. The silence before the storm. Laura was still asleep beside me, curled under the quilt we'd bought together 3 years earlier at a flea market downtown. She had laughed when the vendor told us it was probably haunted, then bought it anyway because she liked the pattern. She always liked imperfect things, said they had stories. I watched her breathe, slow and steady, completely unaware that in my parents' eyes, she had just been erased from Christmas. I didn't wake her, I couldn't. Instead, I sat up in bed, phone in hand, rereading the message until the words blurred. My parents, kind, church-going, casserole-delivering, Christmas card-sending people, had just told me without saying it outright that my wife wasn't welcome. Not this year. As if love expired annually, as if acceptance had terms and conditions. I typed a response, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. Anger came first, hot and fast, then sadness, then a deep, bone-weary disappointment that felt familiar, like I'd been carrying it my whole life, just waiting for it to fully reveal itself. Because if I was honest, this wasn't sudden. This was inevitable. To Laura, the complication. When I first told my parents about Laura, they smiled too quickly. "Oh," my mother had said, "she sounds interesting." My father nodded, lips pressed together, "As long as you're happy." Those words should have comforted me. Instead, they hovered in the air like a warning label. Laura wasn't what they'd imagined for me. She was outspoken where they were reserved, artistic where they were practical, warm in a way that didn't always fit into neat social boxes. She asked questions at the dinner table, real ones, about beliefs, about feelings, about why things were done the way they were. My parents preferred silence to scrutiny. At first the friction was subtle, Laura's name missing from group texts, invitations addressed only to me. "We didn't know if she'd be interested," my mother would say, smiling politely. Laura noticed, of course she did. But she never pushed, never complained. She'd just squeeze my hand afterward and say, "It's okay, families are complicated." I wanted to believe that. 3. The weight of holidays. Christmas amplified everything. Growing up, it had been sacred in my family, tradition layered upon tradition. The same ornaments, the same hymns, the same schedule down to the minute. Laura brought change with her. She suggested new recipes, new music. She laughed loudly, hugged freely, cried openly. She made the holiday feel alive. My parents called it a lot. Last Christmas, my mother pulled me aside in the kitchen, while Laura was outside with my nieces, building a lopsided snowman. "She doesn't really fit in," my mother said quietly, as if Laura couldn't hear laughter through walls. "I just worry about the atmosphere." The atmosphere. As if Laura were a storm cloud, instead of a person who loved me more deeply than anyone ever had. I should have said something then, I should have drawn the line. Instead, I nodded, and Laura paid the price for my silence. 4. The text that changed everything. Which is why the text 2 days before Christmas felt like a verdict rather than a surprise. "Better if Laura doesn't show up." I imagined her reading it, the hurt flickering across her face, the way she'd pretend she was fine, the way she'd say, "Go without me, I don't want to cause problems." And that, more than anything, made my hands shake. Because she would sacrifice herself for peace. And I had done that too many times already. I thought about all the small ways I'd asked her to be less honest, less loud, less herself. Also, I wouldn't have to choose. But the choice had just been made for me. So I typed 5, the reply. I didn't overthink it this time. I didn't soften it or pad it with apologies. I wrote, if Laura isn't welcome, then neither am I. She is my family. I hope one day you can see that. Until then, we'll be spending Christmas together, just not at your house. I read it once, twice. Then I hit send. The moment after was terrifying. My heart pounded as if I'd just stepped off a cliff. But underneath the fear, something else stirred. Relief. 6, the fallout. The response didn't come right away. An hour passed, then 2. Laura woke up while I was making coffee, her hair a mess, eyes still heavy with sleep. Morning, she said, smiling. I swallowed. We need to talk. She knew immediately. She always did. I told her everything, showed her the text, my reply, watched emotions move across her face like weather, shock, hurt, guilt, and then tears she tried desperately to hide. I never wanted to come between you and your parents, she whispered. I took her hands. You didn't, they did. That was the first time I said it out loud. When my parents finally responded, it was my father. We're disappointed. This isn't what we meant. But it was exactly what they meant. They just didn't expect consequences. 7, a different kind of Christmas. We didn't go to my parents' house that year. Instead, Laura and I stayed home. We bought a small tree the day before Christmas Eve, the kind that barely fit in the corner. We decorated it with paper ornaments Laura made by hand. We cooked too much food. We burned the first batch of cookies and laughed until our sides hurt. That night, as snow fell softly outside our window, Laura leaned her head on my shoulder. Thank you, she said. For what? For choosing me. I realized then how heavy that question had been for her all along, how unsure she must have felt, how much my silence had cost her. And I promised myself I would never make her wonder again. 8, the long road back. It took time. Months of quiet, awkward phone calls, missed birthdays. But something had shifted. My parents had to sit with their choice, with the empty chair at the table, with the reality that love isn't divisible, that asking someone to leave their partner behind is asking them to leave themselves behind too. The following summer, my mother called. Could we talk? She asked. That conversation wasn't easy. There were tears, defensiveness, long pauses. But there was also honesty. I didn't realize how much we were hurting you, she admitted, or her. It wasn't perfect, healing never is. But it was a start. 9, next Christmas. The next Christmas, Laura and I were invited together. No conditions, no disclaimers. My parents tried, they stumbled, they learned. Laura brought her favorite dessert. My mother asked her for the recipe. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, it was better. It was real. 10, the morals. Hear what I learned. Love isn't proven in comfort, it's proven in conflict. It's easy to say you care when nothing is at stake. Harder when standing up means disappointing people you've spent your life trying to please. But the moment I chose my wife without hesitation, I didn't lose my family. I redefined it. And sometimes the bravest reply isn't the longest or the angriest. Sometimes it's simply this. If they don't belong, neither do I. Because real love doesn't ask you to leave someone behind. And the people who truly love you will eventually understand that, or reveal that they never did. That Christmas I didn't just choose Laura. I chose integrity. And that gift lasted far longer than the holidays ever could.